The screaming sirens should have been enough to make anyone move. But not Karen. Not her. She stood in the middle of the cul-de-sac, arms crossed like a statue carved from smugness. Red lights from the ambulance danced across her perfectly trimmed hedges, but she didn't budge. Her SUV blocked the only driveway wide enough for the EMTs to wheel the stretcher through, and she knew it. "I told you! No emergency vehicles after 10 p.m., she snapped, her voice slicing through the night like a knife. "This is a quiet neighborhood!" I remember the paramedic's voice shaking with frustration. "Ma'am, someone's life is on the line!" But Karen wasn't listening. She was already pulling out her phone to record, yelling something about HOA rules and calling the sheriff. And while she did that, my baby sister Jordan, my only family, was inside my house, gasping for air. Her EpiPen hadn't worked. Her throat was closing fast. And we were stuck behind a damn HOA meeting in human form. I couldn't scream. I couldn't cry. I just ran. I shoved past Karen and the medics and grabbed Jordan myself, down the porch steps, across the lawn. My knees buckled under her weight, but I didn't stop. I carried her all the way to the ambulance, scraping my leg on the pavement as I helped the team lift her in. As the doors slammed shut and they sped away, I turned back. Karen was still recording, still shouting, still blocking my driveway with that smug look on her face like she was the victim here. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. I wasn't just going to file a complaint. I wasn't just going to post on Facebook. I was going to destroy the little kingdom Karen thought she ruled, and I was going to make sure she watched it crumble, inch by inch. But before we get to the helipad, the revenge, or the ranch, I need to tell you how this war started. Because it didn't begin with sirens or flashing lights. It began 3 months earlier, with cookies, a welcome basket, and a fake smile. When Jordan and I moved into Oak Valley, it felt like a fresh start. After losing our parents in a freak car accident, we were finally trying to rebuild. I'd taken a job teaching high school biology, and she was starting her sophomore year. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and the little ranch house on Maple Loop felt like a dream. White picket fence, wide porch, neighbors who waved. Except for the one who didn't. Karen Masters lived 2 doors down in the biggest house on the street. You couldn't miss it. Cream siding, black shutters, and a manicured lawn that looked like it was trimmed with nail scissors. Her mailbox even had a gold plaque that said HOAPRESIDENT in engraved lettering. Subtle, right? The day after we moved in, she rang our doorbell holding a tray of cookies wrapped in cellophane. "Hi, you must be the new residents." Her smile didn't touch her eyes. "I'm Karen, HOA president. I like to personally welcome everyone and go over a few things." She handed me a folder, not the cookies, and started listing rules. Trash bins can't be out past 7 a.m., no wind chimes, no loud music after 6 p.m. Fences must be painted eggshell white only. It felt less like a welcome and more like a parole briefing. I tried to be polite. "Thanks. We're just happy to be here." "Oh, I'm sure," she said, her eyes flicking toward our driveway. "Is that a truck?" "It's a 2005 Tacoma," I said, already sensing the judgment. She just nodded once and said, "We'll need to discuss that at the next HOA meeting." And with that, she walked away, without giving Jordan or me a chance to say a word. Over the next few weeks, it only got worse. Karen reported us to the HOA for letting Jordan's friends park on the street. She left a warning note when I forgot to mow the lawn one weekend. She even had the nerve to complain about our porch lights being too bright for the aesthetic. But the worst was when she made Jordan cry. It was a Sunday morning. Jordan was painting on the porch, just watercolors, nothing permanent. Karen marched over and accused her of bringing down property values with her juvenile graffiti. My sister, who had just started speaking again after our parents' deaths, ran inside, shaking. That's when I decided to start documenting everything. I filmed interactions, kept logs, filed quiet complaints. But none of it mattered. Karen was the HOA president and a lawyer. No one on the board dared cross her. I tried to keep the peace. For Jordan. For our new life. But then came the night of Jordan's allergic reaction. The peanuts were in a stupid granola bar. She didn't read the label. Within minutes, she was wheezing, eyes swelling shut. I called 911, ran for the EpiPen, but it wasn't enough. And that was when the ambulance came. And Karen blocked it. She nearly killed my sister for the sake of a rule. The next morning, Jordan was stable, exhausted, but alive. I sat by her hospital bed, holding her hand. She asked, "Are we going to move again?" I shook my head. "No, baby. We're not moving." "She is." But I didn't mean eviction. No, I had something bigger in mind. Because what Karen didn't know, what no one in Oak Valley knew, was that I wasn't just a biology teacher. I'd inherited my parents' estate, land, money, and a trust fund I'd never touched. Until now. I opened my laptop and searched for land for sale. And just 2 weeks later, I closed on the 5-acre ranch that bordered Karen's backyard. The next morning, I hired a contractor. The plans? A private helipad, with bright red landing lights, and I'd make damn sure it operated at night. Every single night. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but mine came with concrete aviation permits and a steel landing pad that buzzed louder than any HOA newsletter ever could. Construction started on a Monday morning. At exactly 6:59 a.m., 1 minute before the neighborhood's official quiet hours ended, the bulldozers roared to life. Karen's sprinklers were still misting her lawn when the first truck rumbled down the gravel path separating our properties. I didn't even have to tell the foreman to make it loud. They knew the drill. Karen stormed out in a satin robe and slippers, clutching a mug that read, "Number Boss Lady." Her mouth hung open as she stared at the surveyors placing flags on the ridge behind her backyard. She marched over to the property line like she owned the entire zip code. "Excuse me? What is this? You can't build that close to residential homes." I smiled, stepping out with a fresh cup of coffee. "Morning, Karen. That close? That's my land. You know, the one I just bought." She blinked. "That's private ranch land. Who sold it?" I shrugged. "The Caldwell family. Nice folks. Said no one ever made them a fair offer. Until I did." Karen's face tightened. "Well, you still need HOA approval for—" "Nope," I cut in. "That land isn't under HOA jurisdiction. The board stopped expanding their authority line back in 2011. I double-checked the county maps." She looked like she might choke on her rage. "What are you building?" I took a long sip. "A helipad." She sputtered. "A what?" "Medical use certified," I said smoothly. "I figured if ambulances aren't allowed on your streets after 10 p.m., I should probably have another way to get help to my house." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. I leaned closer. "Wouldn't want Jordan's life depending on your parking decisions again, right?" Karen's lips tightened into a line so thin it practically vanished. She spun on her heel and stormed back toward her house, nearly tripping over a lawn gnome in the process. The next HOA meeting was legendary. Karen called for an emergency session at the clubhouse, mandatory attendance. She printed flyers and posted in the neighborhood Facebook group in all caps, "Unauthorized construction endangering community peace and safety." I went. So did half the block. Karen stood at the front of the room beside a PowerPoint that showed blurry photos of my helipad foundation and a Google image of a helicopter. "This structure," she barked, "will lower property values, disrupt sleep, and pose a safety risk to children," people murmured. Then she looked directly at me. "Tyler, I'm giving you one last chance. Cease construction, or the HOA will take legal action." I stood slowly. "Actually," I said, holding up a binder, "here's a signed letter from the county's zoning board. Here's another from the FAA. And here's a third from my attorney, explaining that, should another delay in emergency services ever occur due to HOA interference, we'll be filing a lawsuit." The room went silent. Karen's mouth opened, then closed. Twice. Someone in the back coughed. Then Karen tried to shift gears. "This isn't personal. We're just trying to maintain harmony in the community." Someone else laughed. "Karen, you called the cops on a Girl Scout troop for improper signage." I didn't need to say anything else. The meeting turned into a low-key roast session. Karen's support crumbled faster than a store-bought cookie in hot coffee. I walked out before it ended. I didn't need to see the rest. The power she held? It was gone. Shiny. Legal. Loud. I didn't even need to use it for medical emergencies. The county certified it, but that didn't mean I couldn't book occasional test flights. A retired pilot friend of mine was more than happy to test hover on weekends, and twice a week at 9:59 p.m., right before Karen's beloved quiet hours began. Jordan would sit on the porch with me, giggling as the blades whipped the wind through our trees. She was painting again, smiling again. Karen tried reporting the noise to the sheriff's department. They visited once, looked at my permits, shrugged. "He's well within his rights, ma'am." She even filed a petition with the city council. They never responded, but the final blow came from someone else. Turns out Karen's husband, quiet, golf-loving Fred, loved helicopters. One afternoon he stopped by while I was repainting the barn. "Mind if I take a look?" he asked, tilting his head toward the landing pad. "Be my guest." He stood there for a long time, then sighed. "I asked her to move years ago, said we should downsize, but she just loves control." He didn't say anything else. 2 weeks later, Fred left her. Moved into a condo across town. Peaceful, HOA free. Karen tried to keep it quiet, but Jordan saw the moving truck. The Queen of Oak Valley was dethroned. But this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because when Karen lost control of her house, her husband, and her title, she started to unravel. And I hadn't even planned my final move yet. I thought building the helipad would be enough. I thought watching her lose face, power, and even her own husband would make Karen back off. But I underestimated one thing. People like her don't know how to lose quietly. A week after Fred moved out, a certified letter showed up in my mailbox. Return address: Oak Valley HOA Legal Subcommittee. I opened it at the kitchen table while Jordan ate cereal, already suspicious of the envelope's thickness. The letter inside was 6 pages long, double-sided, full of citations, articles of the HOA charter, and vague language accusing me of operating a facility that presents a disruption to community cohesion. Jordan leaned over. "Is that about the helipad?" I skimmed it again and let out a bitter laugh. "Nope. They're going after the fence. Apparently my picket slats are 3/4 of an inch too far apart." We stared at each other in disbelief. This wasn't about the fence, or the paint color, or the porch light, which she reported next. It was about control. Karen had lost hers, and she was grasping at any string she could still pull. And worse, she wasn't acting alone anymore. At first, the other HOA members had distanced themselves after the meeting. But now, it looked like Karen had managed to rally a few new recruits. Probably bored retirees with nothing better to do than police lawns and measure shrub heights. Suddenly, I was receiving warnings for everything. Improper mailbox flag color. Unauthorized garden gnome placement. Offensive wind direction of holiday flag. It was ridiculous. But the worst part? It started to wear me down. Jordan saw it. I'd come home from work, tired from lesson planning and trying to smile through the school day, only to find another fine taped to my door like some kind of neighborhood scarlet letter. She started packing away her art supplies without me asking. Started asking if we could go inside before dark. Just in case Karen's watching. That was when I realized something. I'd focused so hard on punishing Karen, I forgot the real reason I built that helipad in the first place. To protect Jordan. And now, we were right back to walking on eggshells. I needed a new plan. One that didn't just slap Karen's ego, but buried it so deep, she'd never recover. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. I was in the grocery store, grabbing a few things for dinner, when I ran into Ms. Bailey, Oak Valley's oldest resident and, oddly enough, one of Karen's few allies. She stopped me near the self-checkout and lowered her voice like she was sharing national secrets. "You didn't hear this from me, but Karen's house is about to go into pre-foreclosure." I blinked. "Wait, what?" She took out a second mortgage right after Fred left. Probably thought she could lawyer her way through everything. but the helipad tanked her property value. She's behind on payments. Word is, she's desperate to sell before it goes public. I thanked her, pretended to act surprised. But inside, I was already 10 steps ahead. That night, I sat down with Jordan and showed her the numbers. How much we had in the trust, what it would cost, what it would mean. She looked at me like I'd grown horns. You want to buy her house? Not just buy it, I said. I want to renovate it, make it into something better, something good. Like what? I smiled. A grief counseling center, for families like us, ones who've lost someone and need a safe space. Jordan blinked, eyes shining. You'd do that? For them? For you, I said. And for Mom and Dad. She nodded slowly. And just like that, we were no longer surviving Karen's war. We were ending it. The following week, I put in an anonymous offer on Karen's house. Full cash, no negotiations. It hit the market on Monday morning. I made my offer by 8 a.m. It was accepted by noon. Karen didn't even know who bought it until the U-Haul rolled up and she saw me step out with the keys in hand. She was standing in the yard, pale as drywall. You, she hissed. You bought my house? I smiled, polite as pie. I figured it could finally be used for something helpful. She clenched her fists. You have no right! I stepped forward, quiet but firm. You blocked an ambulance, Karen. You almost killed a child. You built your little empire on rules and fear, and now you lost it, all of it, fair and square. She opened her mouth again, but no words came out. She left 2 days later. No goodbye, no HOA meeting, no passive-aggressive goodbye cookies. She was just gone. But what we built in her place, that was only the beginning, because the house Karen once ruled from was about to become the heart of Oak Valley, a place of healing, hope, and something she never understood, community. The for sale sign came down the same day Karen's moving truck pulled away, a crooked plastic crown dangling from the mailbox someone had tossed there as a joke. It felt symbolic, like the neighborhood itself had finally exhaled. And in the silence that followed her departure, something unexpected began to happen. People started talking, not whispering, not gossiping, talking. For the first time since we moved into Oak Valley, neighbors stopped pretending and started connecting. Mr. Delgado from across the street brought over a power washer and helped us clean the gutters. Mrs. Tang, who had been too nervous to let her grandkids play outside, baked us lemon bars and offered to paint the old shutters. Even the twins down the block, who once got fined by Karen for riding scooters past curfew, offered to pull weeds. I guess now it's okay to be outside again, one of them said shyly. Jordan grinned and handed him a paintbrush. It's more than okay, it's welcome. Over the next 2 months, we transformed Karen's old house. We stripped out the granite countertops and cold gray floors and replaced them with warm wood, soft rugs, and sunlight. The office where she once drafted fines and citations, we turned it into a cozy reading room, lined with donated books and plush chairs. Her prized back patio, once a no-child zone, became an art space where Jordan painted murals with local teens. We named it The Haven, and slowly, word spread. People came, not just from Oak Valley, but nearby towns too. Grieving parents, kids who'd lost a sibling, teachers who needed a place to sit and breathe after tough days. It was more than a center. It became a living memory of everything Karen tried to suppress. Emotion, noise, healing. Then one afternoon, I was sweeping the porch when a sleek black car pulled into the driveway. Karen. She stepped out slowly, dressed all in beige now, as if she wanted to disappear into the background. No clipboard, no robe, just her. I set down the broom. Didn't think I'd see you again. She looked around, expression unreadable. I thought it'd feel different. I didn't say anything. She stepped closer. You did all this? Number we did. Her eyes flicked to the garden, where Jordan was laughing with 2 little kids. I never meant for her to get hurt, Karen whispered. But she did, I said. Because you treated people like problems instead of humans. Karen nodded once. I lost a lot more than I thought I could. Power. Fred. My home. She looked up, and for once, truly, I saw something break through her shell. Regret. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. But I am sorry. There was a long silence. Then I said, people don't need perfection, they need honesty. Maybe someday when you're ready you can help build something instead of tear it down. She looked surprised. Then, relieved. She didn't say anything else. Just got in her car and drove off, slow this time, like she was finally letting go. That night, Jordan curled up beside me on the porch, the sky glowing orange over the rooftops. Do you miss how things used to be? She asked. I shook my head. Number. I'm glad we stood our ground. We turned pain into purpose. That's bigger than revenge. She thought about that for a second. You ever think about using the helipad again? I grinned. Only for emergencies or dramatic exits. We laughed together, the kind that sticks to your ribs and warms your lungs, because we had survived the storm. We had built something beautiful in its wake. And from the ashes of Karen's kingdom, we'd planted the roots of something better. Not a throne, but a home.